Shane, thank you for coming. Anne-Marie, thank you for coming. I'm looking forward to you guys sharing the MetTel story. It's a story that really more people need to hear. Marshall's the CEO. I met a long time ago, really impressed by his mindset. He's definitely been on the front end of the innovation and technology from network now into mobility. And so I'm really excited to talk about AI and how you're using AI, how it's embedded in your platform, the value of AI to you. So just look excited about this conversation.
Yeah.
Excited about some thoughts, and I'm going to share. Maybe you can open up by talking a little bit about yourselves, and then from there, jump into Becky, ask them some questions, and we'll collaborate, and then we'll end up with you guys kind of talking about your platform and sharing a couple of slides on your platform and telling your story.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Well, I'll start. My name is Shane McFarland. I'm the Regional Channel Director for MetTel. So I support Procure IT, Cactus, and a lot of other technology consultants in the market. And really in Texas and Oklahoma is my key focus. So I'm actually based over in Beaumont, Texas. Who's ever heard of that one? So I grew up half my kid years in Sour Lake, Texas. Anyone heard of that one? Yeah, the only thing it's known for, it's where Texaco was founded. That's it. That's the only thing that it's known for right there. But really appreciate y'all joining us today. I know this is a lot of time out of your day. We want to make sure that this is a value to y'all and do everything we can. So in my background, I've spent a little over 22 years in wireless. I've worked for all the big three. I was actually formerly the big fours. I worked for Sprint as well for a little bit, unfortunately, as well, before they got swallowed up. But I spent 11 and a half years at T-Mobile, and it was incredible timing because this is when John Ledger was there. So if y'all ever heard of Von Carrier, or you saw the crazy guy with the long hair out there dropping F-bombs left and right, that was the CEO of T-Mobile for 7.5 years. And he's actually the whole reason why when you go to a Verizon or an AT&T or a T-Mobile store, number one, they're going to pay your early termination fees that you have with your previous carrier. That's all because of what he did at T-Mobile. Same with how you have your device fees different from your plan fees, breaking those apart so you have more transparency. Your global roaming changes, it was significant what he did. And it's all about innovation for what the customer needs, right? So when the Sprint merger completed and left, I left too. Created my own startup, so I had a software company that I very much enjoyed. And we had a chance to build out a unique application for kids that managed their screen time, but it rewarded them and incentivized them to go into digital learning. So they had to complete digital learning exercises and earn points to then use those points to unlock their screen time for their phone. So we got a patent and everything, and 2 years later, after being janitor to CEO for a number of years, got kind of worn out there and had an opportunity that I had to take. But when I shifted to MetTel, I was looking for the same thing, right? I'm looking for a company that is innovative and is looking for what the customer needs. And that's exactly where we fit. So we've got unique capabilities across connectivity, whether it's POTS in a box, which is our copper line transformation. For those of you who don't know, copper lines do still exist. They are connected to your fire alarms. They are connected to your elevator lines. So if you've moved all of your copper lines over to VoIP, I can assure you, you might still have copper lines on your specialty lines as well. So we need to talk about that before you get charged a fortune. So circuits, fiber, broadband, we could go on there. We expanded into VoIP services as well. Once we expanded, we really started growing. By 2013, we got into mobility. And that's really going to be a lot of our focus today as we talk about our AI integrations as well. And then lastly, most importantly, we got into Starlink. So we are one carrier in the world that can sell Starlink to the United States government as well as to businesses. We have also won Gartner's Magic Quadrant for Managed Network Services for 5 years in a row. We're the only company in the Magic Quadrant in the U.S. today. So a little bit longer of an introduction there, but I'll pause at that point and I'll hand it off to Jean Marie.
Please.
Great. So thank you, Shane. So my name is Jean Marie Wallace. I'm a Director of Mobile Solutions for MetTel, and I actually support the whole western half of the United States, so we cover a lot of ground. I'm actually based out of northern Utah, so up near Park City, if we have any skiers in the room. So
Favorite place.
there you go. I know. I love it there. I always have an open door policy.
Hey, I love
so
it.
come
We'll
on
be there.
out and ski anytime. But I've spent, I don't want to say how many years, it's a lot more than even 30, in the telecommunications business, doing everything from UC&C, mobility, as a principal architect on things like In Contact. But I really, after 26 of those years with Bell Atlantic and Verizon, I came over to MetTel and it actually found it was the best thing I ever did. So MetTel is a privately held organization. We were founded in 1996. We still have our same team of C-level executives, which is really impressive. And we're just under 1,000 employees today. But what makes us unique, and we really want to focus on mobility, is that because of A, being privately held, and B, the relationships that we share with the carriers, we can be very innovative. We are truly an automation-first organization. You know, so much of what we do in our own technology is all built upon AI, and it enables us to move very quickly, and has made us very unique in the marketplace. So there's a lot of challenges in mobility that do exist today, right? There's everything from deploying devices, there's broken devices, there's threats out there within the networks that can happen. Certainly everybody's after your information. And there's just challenges internally in organizations that as this has grown, and especially since COVID, really, it was a good thing, but it threw a stick in the spokes, right? How do we handle all of these challenges and still do our day-to-day job? So we'll talk a little bit about, all the ways that MetTel's been able to really help our customers and around AI.
I appreciate that, Emery. I'm going to let Becky jump in and ask a question here.
Yes, so we MetTel has a very unique offering, and that's your multi-environment SIM.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us how AI works into that and how it helps people in the field.
Sure, absolutely. So one of the items we've developed is a multi-carrier SIM. So certainly when it comes to looking at AI and looking at mobility, for customers at the end of the day, it's about how do I benefit my end users? How do I make them as productive as possible? How do I give them the tools they need? And right, everything is happening on, whether it's a smartphone, whether it's a tablet, whether it's a laptop. So we have what is a multi-carrier SIM we call single SIM. And it actually covers over 165 countries and 650 carriers. It's a data-only SIM, but it will automatically connect to that carrier that has the best signal. So whether you are traveling overseas as an executive, if you're in the IoT space, maybe you have shipping containers, or maybe you have fleet devices, and those are, not statically in one place. Those vehicles, as an example, will automatically switch to the best carrier that exists, right? So this is really exciting stuff. Now, what we're in the process of doing is taking that single SIM, we're rolling out our single SIM 2.0, which is what we call a connected single SIM. This will now enable us to build out a private 5G network within MetTel for our end users to utilize that. We're also in the process of rolling out laptop as a service. So we do mobile device as a service. Laptop as a service is really cool because how many times do companies bring new people on board and they don't have a laptop, they don't have a smartphone? With MetTel, if you actually were to place an order with us by 2 p.m. Eastern, we will ship a fully configured laptop with all of your security settings, single sign-on, through Entra ID or what have you, push out all of your applications and your security settings and have that to your employee the very next day.
With the SIM in it.
With the SIM in it. So if you're traveling and you're in the car, Shane and I have lived in the car together the last few days, having to reconnect, not anymore, it just automatically goes to the next carrier as you move around through different territories. So there's some really cool things happening, and that's just part of what we can do with mobility in the AI space.
I love that. Please.
You ready? Okay. So we've heard this many times. I've heard it with my customers. They have drawers full of devices. They just, someone leaves, they throw the device in the drawer, and then they just pile up. What AI-driven security measures are in place to ensure data protection and compliance in upgraded or replacement devices?
So there's a few pieces there, right? It's really a multi part answer, right? So it is not uncommon, right, for those devices to land in different places. Nobody knows where they are. And guess what? The customers are paying for those service plans. They're paying for those devices. So on one side with MetTel, we have a portal fully AI driven that you can go in and create actions, and you can create alerts and automated ticketing within the platform. So if you want to go out and say, hey, let's look at all the zero usage devices that we have. Maybe you want to run that on a monthly basis. Maybe you want to go in and say, hey, let's automatically suspend any device that's been out there for 45 days that has no usage. And then maybe at 60 days, you automatically just disconnect that device. So it's all built into the platform. You don't have to babysit it at any time. And then, of course, looking at it from another side is having the ability to have security on those devices through AI with something like mobile threat defense, where you're actually able to examine, how that user's utilizing that device, and is there any threats on the network, right? So looking at device forensics and the network, and are there any unusual user patterns, right? So has this device been compromised and somebody else is using it? And of course, while all of this is happening with AI algorithms, it's building out, that machine learning type database and then continuing to learn. So lots of cool stuff that happens.
Yeah, Marie, I think one of the things that excites me is kind of where you guys are going with AI inside of it. I mean, you have ServiceNow in here integrated into it. You're getting a whole different set of data. You guys have one of the larger networks in the United States as an overlay, so you basically manage large networks. The government's a big client of yours. And then on the mobility side, you're driving forward with that. Go deeper into it. Maybe you can share a little quick demo on the platform and give us some insight on how AI is playing into it, because you're doing mobility, you're doing network, you're doing edge, your product sets, you're deploying for the government, you're in the magic quadrants, you're real, okay? And so clients see that. We've been bringing clients to you. We have a client right now, $150,000 a month client, and you're gonna look to save them $30,000. At first I'm like, okay, that doesn't seem logical. But then when I start to understand, and then the client starts to understand everything that MetTel does, they realize that you're innovating where others aren't innovating, and you're able to deliver a different experience because of that. So one of the areas that I think, if you got a second to share, would be able to share a little bit about your platform and where you plan on taking that to the client experience as well.
Sure. So I'm going to hand this over to Shane here in a moment.
Yeah, you're good. Go for it. Answer it.
Well, I get into our portal because we do a lot of federal government work, so we have a lot of security. So lots that we need to do there. But MetTel is the largest wholesaler within the United States for Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T. So we do have unique relationships, right? We have unique contracts. We can be very aggressive on the pricing side, but for us, that's not even the important piece, right? It's what can we deliver to customers, and we're all about ease of use. Let's get these devices out quickly. Let's get things turned around. If you have broken devices, let's get that taken care of. Let's make it easy for you, and then let's give you all the tools within the portal so that you can, whether you're integrating to ServiceNow, single sign-on, HR platforms, but essentially to make it really easy through those API integrations and through that portal. So I'm going to hand this over to you, my friend, and I'm going to get logged in.
Yeah, so let me ask you a question, Shane. I think it's
Sure.
important. So when somebody engages and says, help design an environment for me, they have a mobility play, they want a better track, they want to do kitting on the mobility. Okay, so where do you guys start usually? Is you start on the mobility more now? You start on the network side? Because if you look at it, you kind of live within this world outside of software, where you do managed services for a subset of a client's entire needs.
Sure.
Okay, and so where are you engaging most right now? And when you're being engaged, how are you coming in and approaching it with a solutions engineer, yourself, an Anne-Marie, and an expert in mobility? I mean, how are you guys approaching that?
That's a fantastic question. I'll tell you, it's something that we deal with often, right, as part of this. And I'll say it really depends on where the customer's needs are, right? So we'll break it down first. We do manage network, SD-WAN. We've got our POTS inbox solution, wireless, Starlink. We've got a lot of different products that we're providing. And really, ultimately, it's solving the pain point that's immediate, right? So in some cases, that's going to be network, or that's going to be an SD-WAN replacement that just has to happen now. Other security requirements. I know there was a conversation earlier, where Phil mentioned GCC High. That was a significant deal that we did last month with a space contractor that works with NASA and with SpaceX. So it really depends on where the critical issue is today. That's where we're going to start. A lot of cases, it is a parallel conversation, right? Where we are analyzing their mobility environment, understanding what devices they have today, what their usage looks like, and any critical issues. Just as Jean Marie said, every company we go into with more than 100 phones, number one, they're going to have a drawer or closet full of phones.
Yeah.
So for any of y'all that are in the IT group that's managing wireless, it's somewhere. Whether you know it or not, there is a closet or drawer full of phones there. And so we want to make sure that gets managed well, right? Along with understanding their usage and any outliers. Also, any lines that aren't being used, right? There are a lot of those that we're going to see where they simply, the IT group that is managing wireless can't see that there are a bunch of phones not in use. And we want to make sure they're aware of that. And then on the network side, it's the same challenge, right? We had a client, what is today? Wednesday. So we had a client 2 days ago, and their big challenge is they have so many locations across the United States and internationally where they have to worry about finding out which circuits are available from which carriers in each location. And what that requires is they've got to reach out to Spectrum. They've got to reach out to Verizon. They've got to reach out to on and on and on. Instead, they can now send us the addresses. We're going to look at every single carrier that's available. We're going to look at Starlink. We're going to look at 4G, 5G data redundancy and backup. We've got all of the connectivity solutions they need, and we have the ability to be able to provide them with that holistic approach, right? They can see every option that's available, and they can choose the bandwidth they needed. Yeah, and so while she's building this up, so just so y'all are aware, a lot of our portal, and this is brewing right here. So this is a homegrown portal that MetTel has built. We are constantly making upgrades to it. Every week we get these little notes of, these are the changes that are made. These are the new features. There's now a Starlink dashboard, a POTS in a box dashboard, SD-WAN. It's incredible the level of insight that's now available in here. But specifically on mobility, for anyone who has looked at a portal from a current carrier today and looked at what the wireless account is, how to access information and what is available, it's extremely limited, extremely limited. Here, we're providing not only what lines and devices you have all in one place, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, but what it's doing right now is it's actually connecting back to the Verizon network. It's connecting back to the AT&T network, and it's looking at the exact usage as of 5 or 10 minutes ago to see where the usage is so that we can understand, who's watching Netflix too much when they're not supposed to be watching it at all, who's not using their phones, right? We know it goes in both directions, and we want to make sure they have that availability. For this company here, the reason why it took so long to pull up is they have over 12,000 devices with us. So it does take a little bit longer to pull that information in. But with that, Jean Marie, if you want to talk through this.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, we give the ability for our customers to come in and see things like their data pool, right? So it's all about optimization at the end of the day. So, when we take a look at customers, we say, well, how much data are you using? How many devices do you have? And let's build you out a pool that's optimized to fit your needs. Now, for Primo Water in this case, they have a number of different pools, but customers can log in here very easily and see, not just what their current usage is and what their limits are, but they can see what their projections are. So we'll give them an idea of where they're going to be. So in this example, Primo Water, they have a lot of usage this month, right? So they're going to be over. We will actually proactively reach out to that customer before the end of their billing cycle and say, hey, you look like you're going to be over. how can we help you manage this better? Is this a unique month? Do we need to bump up some of your plans to cover it, right? Because you don't have to change everything. You change a few, you up the pool, and you're good. And in this case, they probably have some routers out there that are, obviously this one is loading a lot of data, but you can see all of your users, routers, so all those mobile devices. And this is where we can actually go in and set these alerts and settings. So I can go in at any point and say, hey, you know what? When I hit 85% of my usage bucket, send me an email, send me a text, email my administrators as a customer. And then this is where we can also go in and say, hey, are there 0 usage lines? And let me create tickets to automatically suspend those, right? So this is, sorry, it's just a little slow on this connection. But there's so many tools that are built in. We build them for you, and then customers can create as many of these alerts, these actions as they would like. So you have full control over, exactly what's happening in your environment. And just to add to that, typically if you go into a carrier portal, right, or many, if you have a lot of carriers, you really have to dig to find data. And within our portal, since we're supporting all the carriers, we don't care. We're agnostic as far as what carrier you utilize. So you might have some employees that are great on Verizon, some that are great in AT&T in another part of the country, maybe T-Mobile in another. And you can move those around on the fly. They have an eSIM, super easy, make the request in 15 minutes, go through that port process, and they're up and running on a new carrier. So, there's just so much that is built into this, and you're also not going into multiple portals, whether it's billing, whether it's making changes and reporting.
How do you minimize the tech sprawl, simplify it down, and build an experience? I think one of the things, too, between the MVNO and network, 2 major things, you blend one story together. I think the roaming SIM, especially international and globally, travel, everything else is a big deal. And so, yeah, I'm thank you guys very much. I mean, I just want to say the partnership's great. We're excited. We have some great partnerships that are coming our way right now. But, thank you guys for your time, and we appreciate it, Shane.
Really appreciate it. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you so much, Randy.